size of this maybe. Is that good for people to read? Is that okay? Yes, thanks. Not stressful. You took 5 minutes away, by the way. My name is Stéphane. I'm a software engineer on the web team, and today I'm going to present to you a talk called Rewriting History, a humble collection of Git tricks, which is a great title, I think. Not just because I came up with that, but also because before I had this title, some of my colleagues suggested things like get your Git together, get your shit. And the problem with that title is that it kind of implied that I knew about Git, or I could tell you how to use Git. The truth is, Git is a very complex piece of software. It's also very smart, so I don't get most of it. So today is just me demonstrating some stuff that I use on a daily basis to organize my workflow, but it doesn't mean that I'm knowledgeable about all of Git. If you ask me what's a three-way merge, write on a piece of paper, fold it, and put it in a bin, because I don't know. I'm also going to present all of my presentation in there. It's quite minimal, but at least I'm not reading out slides out loud. And so let's start away with a brief history of histories. And what I'm going to do is, this is the history of version control system, which is software that helps you track your changes in source code. And it started in 1982. I'm not going to talk about it because I wasn't born, so I don't really care. But when I started using software, there was SVN, which you can see in 2000, which stands for subversion. And that was sort of the first introduction to sort of software. And then some years later, there came a whole bunch of DVCS, including Git. There was Bizarre, which was made by the Ubuntu people. It was Mercurial. But I'm just going to talk about Git today because that's the one I use and the one I know best. But basically, there was a big change from SVN to... so VCS is for version control system, and DVCS actually, stands for decentralized version control system. And the main difference is that means that instead of having to rely on a server to commit and sync your changes over, with Git, everyone is its own master. When you clone a repo in Git, you actually get a full copy of the project, and you can start working with it right away. You can do commits. With the difference, SVN, when you use Subversion, you have to commit. If you're offline, it didn't work, because you had to talk to a server, and you always had, whenever you had changes that were ready to be committed, you had to publish them on the server, which Git actually doesn't do to you. You can control your history, and you can kind of make comments, make changes, and you don't have to push until you're ready to push. The way people sync without a centralized server nowadays with those decentralized systems is by using a common remote. It's called a remote. And for example, a GitHub remote, and people will push to that thing whenever they're ready. And the big advantage that gives you, the big advantage, so you can work offline. It's quite fast, and most importantly, it means that you can do a bunch of commits, and as long as you don't push, they're on your side. Your history is yours, and you're free to rewrite it, and to change things and to amend things along the way. And does it really matter? Yes, it does, because as you work on something, a bug, an issue, whatever it is, it's important. You're not going to figure it out right away. You're going to have to go through different stages. And as you go, it's important, just like any work that takes a certain amount of time, you have to refine and maybe change something and amend some stuff so that it makes a lot of sense for people. When you're eventually ready to publish these changes, then you can change, I don't know, things that weren't necessary, things that don't need to be separate commits. How many people are just Git, by the way? Okay, great. And it means that you're in control of your history, and that you can change it in a way that it really makes sense for your coworkers. And the reason it's important to do that, when I started doing software, I was working open source projects. And open source projects are maintained by people who do it on their free time. And they don't really, they can't really afford the time or money because they're not being paid. So, but they can't really afford the time to take the information you're not providing. So if you were to submit a bug report and you didn't include as much information as necessary, or if you had like some patch, some changes that I wanted to push, if it was lacking information, then it would just get thrown away right away. So it's important, even in corporate environments where people don't necessarily care as much, it's still important for history, for the sake of other people that might work on your code in the future and might look at this history of changes, to make sure you maintain a history that has meaning in it, not just work in progress commits and splitting commits and that sort of stuff. So let's dive in, and this is a bunch of tricks that I'm going to present today. I'm not going to go on all of it because I managed to find the outline for that talk in half an hour. I kind of knew what I was talking about, and I struggled all afternoon to find solid examples, so I might skip over in panic on some of these examples. So the first thing that some people don't know necessarily about Git is that before... Okay, I'm in a clean directory. This is just a sample app, and it's unreadable. Okay. Before you do a commit, there's actually two areas that Git knows about, which are called the index or staging area and the work tree. And the work tree is just a dump ground. Like anytime you record a change in the file, that change will end up in the work tree, and then you can select where you want to stage for the next commit, or we want to be selected for the next commit, by adding this file to the staging area, and that's what git add does. And that matters because I see a lot of people around sometimes who just use git commit and they pass the A switch -A, and it just adds everything and puts it into the commit, and you can refine the sort of changes that you want. So I'm going to work on this project. This is just this is my Git integration. Don't worry about it, it's pretty much the same as the normal Git. So actually, save this. These are a bunch of changes, and you can see they're in staged changes, and that's the work tree. Okay? So if I went back to a normal terminal and went git status, you can see changes not staged for commit. Okay? And so that's where git add comes into play. If I wanted to only add the changes that I've done to the app, for example, I can just go like this, oops, type properly, and then here you can see that my app file has been staged and the rest is still there, okay? And if I were to comment, actually, so if I want to go here, you can see in the summary that Git gives you that only these changes are being recorded and the rest will carry on in the work tree for the next commit, okay? So that's like a first line of distinction you can do with your changes. You don't have to always commit everything you have. Every changes you've saved, you can just kind of select and make sure you have meaningful atomic commit. Okay? So, I'm going to discard this. Wait, yeah, stage this. So that would be my first trick, I guess, is you can add selectively files that you want. If you put something in the staging area and you want to check it out, you go git reset on it. So, for example, here, I've added app.js, but actually I don't want the changes in there anymore. Okay, so these changes, yep, no, I don't want them. So I can just go git reset source app, pass it the path, and it won't discard the changes. It will just remove them from that zone that Git refers to as the staging area, and it'll just like put it back into the work tree. But I'm not going to lose my changes. If I look at it again, you can see that these changes are still in there. So yeah, that'll be the first trick, is to always just kind of select in your work tree changes that make sense and make sure your commits are meaningful so you can group them together the right way. Okay, now git stash. Git stash is a way to take some changes and record them, and just like take them away but record them somewhere for later use, I guess. It functions as a stack, so you can just like add stashes above. And so here, for example, if I'm working on something important, but say I have to check out a pull request by some coworker, or I just need to get rid of these changes really quick because I want to go back to the initial state, I can go git stash, apply, and then you can add some message, hopefully meaningful, not here, but shit, push, nope. Okay, and you can see here that now my working directory is clean, But if I look at my list of stashes, I have the last one, so the first one, because it's a stash, right? The last one that gets added is the first that come out. You can see the first one is the one I just had, and if I go get stash show, by default it'll give me the last one, and it'll give me the sort of combined diff. If I pass the p-switch, which stands for patch, it'll give me the full diff of things. And I'm not going to go over the K, which stands for keep index, because I don't have time. So, the next one I'm going to talk about is git grep. Git grep allows you to search through your Git, sort of all the files that Git cares about. There's been a bunch of other tools lately, the Silver Searcher or like git grep, tools that are aware of the files you want to ignore. So for example here, if I'm doing random things on my computer, it's a bit confusing. This is a standard node project, okay, and you can see here that I have node modules. And if I want to search for something like React, right, and I use the usual grep command, and I count the number of matches I have, because grep is not aware of which files I care about, A, it's going to take a while, which is slightly annoying, and B, there's a huge amounts of matches because it's searched through my node modules, and pretty much every file in that directory where I run the search has been through all of these. So if I use git grep instead, and I say that pattern, it's actually much faster. And if we look at the number of matches, I only have 94 compared to the huge number I had before, because Git is aware of what you track and what you don't track, okay? There's also some extra comments that are quite useful. So here, if I wanted to look at React, there's a bunch of different instances of it in my README file, for example, and in my test file and a bunch of stuff. And I can do things like this that not many people know. I can say, you know what, give me all instances of React, but also I want this pattern import to appear, right? And here you will see that, you know, unsurprisingly, it'll actually give me, you can combine sort of and or as well patterns to make sure you nail down your search to something that makes sense. You could also, there's a lot of occurrence in my README file here. You can see on the left-hand side. And if I wanted to ignore that file, I could just, I think I can go like this. Yay, and I don't have my README file included anymore. So it's another great tool. 12 minutes left, God. It's a very powerful tool. Just look into the documentation. There's a bunch of things you can do to really make sure you can find quickly what you're searching for. So I'm going to go back to this. That's done. Now something a little more tricky is add interactive. So we've seen that git add allows you to select files and say, tell Git, this file, all the changes in this file, they're good for the next commit. That's good enough, and it will make it into the next commit. Sometimes you want to be a bit more granular about the changes. Maybe in my situation here, so see, for example, into that header file, I have two different changes. Both of them absolutely meaningless. Okay, I freaked out on these examples, they don't really mean anything. But if I wanted to commit, for example, the prop types at the bottom, and just make sure only this get committed, I could use my awesome editor to do that, but I could also do it with Git. And the difference with git add, where you actually let's just clear this out real quick. So, what? Hold on. Okay, my bad. This, okay, I'm back here. Usually people use git add to just add full files into it, or like the full header, for example, the full header changes. Okay, and now in my next commit in green, I'm gonna have this header file being committed with the two changes. If I only wanted, so I'm gonna remove it first of all. If I only wanted to get the top part, I can use git add and pass the I switch, which means interactive, and that just gives you a menu. That's quite confusing, but if you know how to use it, so git add interactive presents you with a little menu, and you got a bunch of comments. Most of them I don't know about. But the number 5 patch allows you to go into, to tell Git which files you want to look at, and then Git will run you through every change in that file and ask you, do you want it Do you not want it? Do you want all of them or none of them? So for example here, I said I wanted to commit only the last bit of my header change, right? So I'm going to go, I want to patch some of these files, and I'm going to select number 3 here because that's where I want to look for my changes. I could select more if I wanted to. And so here, once I'm done selecting the files I want to look at, I can just, you can see a little star to indicate that it's been taken into account. And then when I go here, you can actually see that Git goes a lot finer. Do you guys see over there? Yeah? Okay. I don't really want to move that. You can see that Git actually splits out the different files in the different changes in your file, so you can really make sure the right part goes into which comment. So if I say no, so there's a very confusing menu again. There's a bunch of options you can do. But here I'm going to say no, I don't want this one, and yes, I do want this one. And now because we reached the end of the changes in those files, I can just exit. And here you can see that actually I have the header file both in my staging area and in my work tree. Why? Because I've only selected the bottom changes to go into my next comment. Okay? So here you can see that my stage change is only the top type, and if I look at the remaining changes, there's only the top ones. Okay? So that's quite also useful. Sometimes you're working for a long time with some big files, and nothing really works, but there's that one line that you know should be part of that comment. So you can just add this, really refine what you need, so you don't have to like always change too much things at once. So that's for Git Add Interactive. And for a little break, let's just start this one. Okay. Okay, so the next one. Yay! Git comment amend is actually quite useful. It's quite simple to guess what it's going to do. So I'm just going to bump this up a bit because I'm feeling it's already. Yeah, that's great. Git comment amend allows you to just change the last comment you did, because it's called amending. You know, it's not you can't change the whole history with that. But with amend, you can just like come back to the last comment you just did and change, you know, the comment message or even add changes to it. So for example, yeah, okay. So I'm here, and I'm gonna say, okay, remove required prop types, and whoops, made a typo, okay? And so you can see now that in my git log, you know, that comment is not really readable, so I can just go back like this. I can just git commit amend, and it allows me to go back, just to reopen that comment, and just change what I want to change. So here I can say, I don't know how to type, you know, I can just really change if I didn't make a really clear comment message, I can just do this. And you can see now that the old comment is gone. I mean, it's actually the top one, but I've managed to get into it and change it. The other thing you could do, say for some strange reason, I also wanted to welcome in that top change. Now I actually do want to do that. Okay, so I'm gonna add this file, and say I don't want to do an extra comment for that thing. I just kind of want to merge it back with the previous comment. I can do the same thing here. I can do git comment amend, and git comment amend is aware of the staging error. Anything in the staging array I'll put into that previous comment. So here, if I do this, you can see here in the changes not staged for comment, there's no more remaining changes of that header.js file, because I've managed to tell that those changes matter and just merge it back into the previous comment. Okay, and here you can see now in my last comment that I do have both changes now, because I've managed to go back into it. So my point being that you can change just the title if you made a typo or if it wasn't clear enough. Or maybe, you know, sometimes there's a typo in the code, or there's like 3 new lines instead of 1. And if you don't have to do a comment that says fix new line. No one likes these, really. So you can just go back and amend your comment until it's really meaningful. So, okay, now git revert. I think I have something ready for this. Git revert, as you guess, allows you to just revert a comment. I'm not sure it's that unknown, but I've seen people sometimes just like looking at a comment and doing the changes manually and then making a new comment. When everything's on fire, you do want to be fast at reverting whatever screwed up. So here, you can see actually, so you can see in my log, I have this exact comment here, okay? Say production suddenly breaks and everyone's crying, and you just have to revert that comment. You can just select the hash, right? Because every comment comes with a hash. And you can just grab, I'm going to copy this thing, okay, like this, and I can just pass it to git revert, and it'll just look at its changes and try to revert it. It's quite smart. It's git. And here it opens up a comment which already describes what it does. You can add more notes if you need to, but it's just a very fast way to undo some changes. Not necessarily unknown, but still you have to know it. And then you can see now it actually appears in my history. Okay, what is next? Done this. Yeah, okay. Now git log. As you guess, is quite straightforward. It allows you to just like look at the log of changes, but there's a bunch more options that are quite useful. Gitlog can do a lot of different formats. The default one has the comment hash, the author, the date, and the description. You can also use one line to have it in one line. Incredible. And it doesn't really appear here, but like on bigger project, on ASOS project, when you have a lot of comments, it's important to be able to just like see everything at a glance right away. So that's one of them. You can customize it, but I don't know all the options. Author allows you to filter by author. So here, if I go back into this and I look at someone called Davis, like Jack over here, my colleague. There's nothing. Did you work at all? Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Hello, Jack Davis. There he is. So really, if you really want to blame someone and you're pretty sure it's them, this is a faster way to get to the blame. Okay? So there's that too. Now, one of the incredibly useful switch to Gitlog is S, and you just copy a string to it, and allows you to read. It looks back into every comment in the message and in the diff for that pattern that you specify. I have 2 minutes left. It's never going to happen, and that's really useful because if you make a change and you have a variable called Apple, and then 10 comments later it doesn't exist anymore, and you get a bug report about this. Sometimes Gitlog S is a great tool to figure out what's. Actually, I want to go back here. So, for example, if I want to look at every time I've changed something, like is required, you can see these are all the comments that match that keyword. Hold on. See, and you can see here, I'm making my point weirdly somehow, because it's not in the code anymore. If I look for is required, it's not there anymore. But if I look into my history and look at comments that had it, then I have these 2 comments. And if I wanted to look at the actual change, I can pass the p-switch, which stands for patch, and that allows me to look at whenever these comments were made. And you can see is required is in there, but this is a line that was deleted. So if you were looking just through your current state of the project, you'd never find it. That's really useful to sort of figure out when things change and when this random name started disappearing. Alright, git cherry pick, I'm not going to go over because I don't have time. Git rebase, I'm also not going to go over because I have 22, 1, 0 seconds left. So, in conclusion, there's a bunch of things you can do with Git. It's an incredible tool for every developer, not just to make sure that your coworkers don't spend too much time trying to guess what the hell why the hell did you do certain things the way you did, but also for your own personal sort of sense of where you were, where you started. It allows you to really organize your work and just kind of have this mental flow going really well. Done, sure. And yeah, so in conclusion, make it your friend because it's very powerful. And I'm sorry if nothing made sense. Thank you.